Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know the score. We take complex source material, break it down, and give you the absolute core of what you need to know. Today, we are strapping on the analyst gear, really getting into it, and plunging into probably the most compelling individual battle in the Legacy Division right now, the MVP race. We've got access to this really extensive, detailed breakdown of the top candidates, their stats, team context, advanced metrics, all the good stuff that tells the real story. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is pretty critical. We're moving entirely beyond just the simple box score, points and rebounds. We really need to try and resolve this central paradox of the race. Is the most valuable player the guy who carries the absolute highest workload, the highest usage, or is it maybe the most efficient cog in what is clearly the league's most dominant winning machine right now? We're going to use team success, the actual nature of their contributions, and those advanced metrics to understand exactly why these players are ranked where they are in the source material we have.
Right. And to really follow along with this, you absolutely have to be kind of fluent in the language the source material is using. The key metric driving this whole analysis is PIE. That's player impact estimate. Now, for those maybe more used to standard box scores, PIE is presented here as the cleanest impact stat because it measures a player's total contributions, positive and negative, relative to the team's overall outcomes, but only when they're on the floor.
So it's not just scoring then, right?
Yeah.
How does PIE actually, capture that hidden influence, the stuff that doesn't always show up?
Well, think of it like this. Traditional box scores often reward volume. Just doing a lot. PIE rewards efficiency and, crucially, possession control. A high PIE suggests you're doing things like ending opponent possessions cleanly, so grabbing a defensive rebound and not immediately turning it over, for example. Or on the other end, you're converting offensive possessions at a really high rate. It's designed to capture influence that doesn't just pop up as a bucket or an assist. It could be, smart defensive positioning, maybe a chase down block that doesn't get recorded the same way, or active hands leading to turnovers, what the analysts call event creation. It's how we can really start to identify players whose influence goes way beyond just the standard scoring categories.
Perfect. Okay, so we're looking at who generates value per possession. Essentially, that makes sense. And looking at the landscape right now, the race really does seem to split cleanly into those two camps we mentioned. You've got the statistical monsters on one side, the high-usage guys like Arman Brown carrying an incredible load. And then on the other side, you have these highly efficient system anchors on the undefeated teams, specifically that Raptors 2.0 core. So where do we start? I guess with the man who currently holds both the statistical crown and the efficiency crown, according to this data.
Yeah, let's start there.
Right, so when you look at just raw dominance, you pretty much start and maybe even end with Arman Brown of college. He's the clear frontrunner in these rankings. Even though college just took their first loss in L1, as the breakdown calls it, putting them at a still very solid 3-1 record, the numbers he's putting up, especially when you look at them through that PIE lens we just discussed, are just, they're staggering.
Yeah, Arman Brown really defines that elite comprehensive workload. He's the undisputed scoring king right now, leading the league with a massive 29.0 points per game. Now, that volume alone usually gets attention, right? But what really solidifies his MVP case and why the sources rank him #1 is his holistic and dominant impact across the entire court. He leads the entire league, and by a pretty significant margin, with a colossal 22.1 PIE.
22.1, wow.
Exactly. And then you look at the rest of his stat line, 4.8 assists per game, that's 5th overall, and 8.0 rebounds per game, 6th overall. It just shows he's not just a scorer. He basically is the system for college.
That brings us right to that core term they use for him, the heliocentric scorer. We hear that term thrown around a bit casually sometimes, but in Arman's context, the analysis suggests the college offense is literally built entirely structurally around his gravity. He's taking the tough shots, sure, but crucially, the reports emphasize he's creating his own offense and he's consistently generating quality looks for his teammates too. So what is it about that specific combination that results in a leading PIE of 22.1? How does that work?
It really comes down to the efficiency of his high usage. That 22.1 PIE is directly explained by what the analysts are calling his two-level pressure. That means he impacts both ends of a possession sequence and does it consistently. Think about those two top 6 stats again. 8.0 rebounds, 4.8 assists. The 8.0 rebounds often mean he's the one finishing the defensive possession, cleanly securing the ball, stopping second chances. Then often he's the one immediately triggering the offense because he handles the ball, he makes plays, resulting in those 4.8 assists. Ah, okay. So he's finishing possessions either with rebounds or points, and he's initiating them with assists, kind of bookending the play.
Exactly right. He's converting these high leverage moments at both ends of the floor over and over. And that constant high leverage involvement is what keeps college playing faster. It keeps their baseline efficiency up, even when his usage rate is just, astronomical. Look, if he were just a high volume scorer but had a low PIE, that would tell you he's taking too many empty trips, right? Wasting possessions. But a guy scoring 29 points a game and leading the league in PIE, that suggests that even the difficult shots he takes are, within their offensive structure, often the best option available. And crucially, he's converting them at a rate far superior to his peers who might attempt similar shots. That kind of burden, and carrying it effectively, that's the absolute foundation of his frontrunner case right now. But, okay, every dominant system like that, especially one built so heavily on one guy, it has a vulnerability, right? And Arman's seems to come down to sustainability. College just took that L1, their first loss. His MVP case, you have to think, could narrow pretty quickly if the team stalls out, or if they start relying too heavily on just pure isolation plays down the stretch, and that efficiency dips even a little. The source material is very clear on this. College has continued winning. Their efficiency, it relies heavily on keeping those secondary contributors involved and, frankly, thriving.
Absolutely. The success of any system built around one star really hinges on the role players being, well, almost perfect co-pilots. They have to maximize the touches they do get. And college does have those pieces, which is likely why that 3-1 start feels pretty stable. Let's look at Jeffrey Tiki for a second. He might be the co-pilot, but his value is immense, according to this data. It shows he ranks top 10 in 4 key categories: assists, steals, blocks, which analysts often combine and call stocks, and he still maintains a strong PIE himself at 12.1.
Wow. Top 10 in 4 categories. That's serious two-way commitment from a secondary guy.
It really is. And it stabilizes the entire floor for college. Think about it. When Arman is taking on the immense risk of generating that high-volume offense, Tiki's ability to generate those stocks, those defensive events, it stabilizes the foundation. He kind of covers for the defensive attention Arman might not be able to consistently provide because of that offensive load. His 12.1 PIE shows efficient secondary usage, too. He isn't wasting possessions. He's actually taking advantage of the space Arman's gravity inevitably creates.
And we shouldn't overlook Robert Sarmiento either, the other crucial piece mentioned. He's noted for solid two-way play as well, ranking well in steals, rebounds, and PIE. So this reinforces the idea that, yeah, Arman is the primary, maybe indispensable engine, but college's system has this internal consistency. It won't completely fall apart when Arman takes a tough shot or maybe has a slightly lower usage stretch, because guys like Tiki and Sarmiento are hitting their marks defensively and providing that secondary playmaking.
Exactly. If college keeps winning, it's going to be because those two are maintaining that two-way efficiency behind Arman. You could think of it like this. If Arman is the high-voltage wire powering the whole city, Tiki and Sarmiento are like the sophisticated circuit breakers. They keep the power grid from overloading. And that system allows Arman to sustain that massive 29 ppg usage rate without causing a total collapse. That separation between Arman and the rest of the league right now, largely driven by that PIE number, is what defines the top of this race.
Okay, now let's pivot completely. We have to look at the other side of this equation, the team success factor, where the story is, well, totally different. We're moving to Raptors 2.0. They are currently undefeated, 4-0, with a staggering plus 82-point differential.
Oh, plus 82.
That number is just, it's absurdly high for this stage of the season. And it forces us to look really closely at their two main MVP candidates, B.A.L.L and Sean Vestal, to understand how their very distinct contributions are generating that juggernaut level of success.
Right, B.A.L.L is the starting point here. He's the systemic anchor, the absolute backbone of the team, and the source material really frames him as the best MVP pick from the league's undisputed #1 team right now. His contribution is almost purely impact-based. Like you said, you won't find him topping the scoring charts, yet his impact is clearly immense. He leads the team in multiple crucial statistics: 12.3 rebounds per game, that's second overall in the league, 5.0 assists per game, tied for second overall, and a phenomenal 19.0 PIE, which is second overall, only behind Arman.
Wait, hold on. A 19.0 PIE is second only to Arman Brown's 22.1, but B.A.L.L isn't a volume scorer at all. That's incredible efficiency. But let's get specific. How do those three stats, the high rebounds, high assists, and he also gets steals, right? Like 2.3 steals per game. How do those translate directly into a plus 82 differential? What makes him the possession king, as the analysis calls him?
It's completely about controlling the sequence of play. The analysts call it the end start punch. So the 12.3 defensive rebounds are crucial because they end the opponent's possession cleanly, right? No second chances. Then, instead of just, passively kicking the ball out to a guard, His playmaking ability, that 5.0 APG, immediately triggers the Raptors' early offense. So it's this 1-2 combination. Cleanly end the defensive possession, and then immediately start the offensive possession, often in transition or semi-transition, already with an advantage.
Okay. So he's basically flipping the court faster and more effectively than anyone else, keeping that momentum constantly in their favor.
Exactly. That specific mechanism is presented as the direct explanation for that league-best plus 82 differential. The Raptors simply win the possession battle overwhelmingly. They maximize the ratio of high-quality shots they get versus the low-quality, often contested shots the opponent is forced into because they're always reacting. And those 2.3 steals per game, that just shows his ability to create those defensive events, reading passing lanes, active hands, leading to cheap transition points, which, as you know, are the most efficient shots in basketball.
He really does sound like the ultimate connector piece.
Yeah.
The scouting report mentions he toggles between being a point forward initiating things and a backline rebounder cleaning up. He's facilitating the offense while simultaneously setting the whole defensive tone.
Yeah, he allows the Raptors to play multiple styles and lineups because he fills so many gaps effectively. Sean Vestal benefits because D-Will sets him up with clean looks. Brian Gonzalez, their big man, benefits because D-Will cleans up so much on the perimeter defensive glass, allowing Gonzalez to focus purely on interior defense and rim protection. Now, D-Will's only real vulnerability, according to the sources, is narrative. If MVP voters get obsessed with just chasing the scoring title, he absolutely risks being overlooked because his point totals aren't headline news. But if Raptors 2.0 stays unbeaten or close to it, that 19.0 PIE keeps him locked in, essentially neck and neck with Arman Brown in terms of pure value.
Okay, that brings us perfectly to his teammate, Sean Vestal. Now, I have to inject maybe a little friction here, play devil's advocate. Why isn't Vestal ranked higher in this initial analysis? He's the secondary Raptors MVP candidate, yes, but his case seems built purely on efficiency and finishing within that amazing system. His main driver is his PIE of 13.3, which is still fourth overall in the division. In a system this successful, shouldn't the elite finisher, the guy capitalizing on all that, get potentially more credit?
Well, that's a fundamental question, isn't it? About team balance and how we assign value. Being top 4 in PIE on the undefeated league-leading team, that is the ultimate badge of efficiency. It absolutely proves he's a vital part of that plus 82 success. It signifies, a clean shot diet, very few turnovers, and a high conversion rate on the possessions he does end up using. But the sources do note he's primarily the high leverage wing, meaning he's often the finisher of the advantages that D-Will and others create rather than being the primary initiator like D-Will or Arman Brown are for their teams.
Let's talk about that synergy then, the one that builds the plus 82 differential. How does D-Will's defense and playmaking specifically create that clean shot diet Vestal seems to thrive on?
It's described as a beautifully efficient system. D-Will's playmaking, often coming immediately after he secures a defensive rebound, means the Raptors are constantly attacking a defense that's still scrambling back. So Vestal, playing as that high-leverage wing, he's running the floor, getting to his spot, often knowing the ball is coming and coming with pace. He isn't usually forced to break down a set defense late in the shot clock. The result: wide-open catch-and-shoot opportunities or maybe drives against defenders who are still recovering. And that leads directly to that impressive 13.3 PIE because he converts a very, very high percentage of those clean looks generated by the system.
And his spacing impact must be huge, too.
Oh, absolutely. His jumper is critical to their structure. Defenses absolutely have to honor him out on the perimeter. And that fundamentally widens the driving lanes for D-Will when he attacks. And it prevents opponents from just collapsing with double coverage on their interior anchor, Brian Gonzalez, down low. Vestal provides essential two-way utility. He pops up in the steals list too sometimes and gives them real offensive punch without needing high volume.
But the potential downside of being on such a stacked juggernaut team is always that risk of credit splitting, right? If D-Will, Vestal, and their interior anchor Brian Gonzalez all perform at such an elite level, the MVP votes could just get diffused among them, which might actually benefit a clear singular leader like Arman Brown. So if Vestal's counting stats happen to dip even slightly, his entire case seems to hinge completely on Raptors 2.0, sustaining that unbeaten record and him maintaining that hyper-efficient 13.3 PIE.
Which is exactly why we need to briefly mention that key interior piece of the puzzle, Brian Gonzalez. He's identified as the key defensive and interior component. He ranks top 5 in rebounds himself at 9.3 per game, and he contributes heavily in the blocks and PIE conversations too, though maybe not quite at the MVP candidate level of the other two. But he anchors that paint defense. He enables the Raptors' whole system to absorb drives and immediately push the ball out the other way because they trust him implicitly to clean up everything in the middle. The collective strength of these three do well facilitating rebounding and defending. Vestil efficiently finishing and spacing, and Gonzalez anchoring the paint. That collective is precisely why the Raptors are 4-0 with that enormous point differential. It's a system working at peak efficiency.
Okay, let's transition now to two players whose MVP cases are defined by really distinct forms of team context. It's fascinating. We have the successful floor general who's driving his team up the standings, and then we have the player whose elite impact is essentially being, well, almost canceled out by playing on a struggling team. Stories here are really compelling.
Yeah.
Let's start with Nico Arias.
Right, Nico Arias. He's presented as the definitive engine of Mamba. They're a team sitting at 3-1, and importantly, they're trending rapidly up the standings, currently riding a W2, a two-game win streak. And the analysis is clear. Nico is the key to this climb. He's the league's definitive primary creator, their absolute decision hub on offense.
And his statistical case backs that up. It's elite creation combined with solid scoring. He leads the entire league with 5.3 assists per game. That's number 1 overall. And that's coupled with a very solid 16.5 points per game, which is 5th overall. He's actually the only player outside of that Raptors core and Arman Brown to lead a major statistical category right now. What does that specific combination tell us about how Mamba runs their offense?
It confirms exactly that role, the decision hub. He's constantly toggling, and apparently toggling correctly, between looking for his own score and setting up his teammates. That league-leading assist rate suggests he's actively collapsing defenses, forcing help defenders into tough choices, and then he's making the right read consistently. We're talking about driving kick plays out to the wings, or maybe those perfectly timed pocket passes into the paint to teammates like Jojo Barnado, who's mentioned as a beneficiary. That ability to create advantages, particularly in the half-court set, is what's fueling Mamba's efficient recent run and their climb up the standings. They look dangerous right now.
It really sounds like his value is rooted maybe less in just raw athleticism and more that high-level game management, that control.
Precisely. It's his leadership, his command over the half-court offense that seems to be making Mamba a legitimate contender. And there's this fascinating, almost surprising defensive detail highlighted in his scouting report that I think tells us everything we need to know about his overall commitment level. He's averaging 0.5 blocks per game BPG as a guard.
Half a block per game. For a guard who handles the ball that much, that is rare. Why is that specific detail significant in his evaluation?
Well, it signals relentless effort, pure and simple. 0.5 BPG for a primary ball handler like him generally means one of two things, or maybe both. Either he's getting strong perimeter contests that actually result in deflected shots at the rim, or, and this is my favorite, he's getting those determined chase down blocks in transition after maybe a turnover. It's this kind of hidden defensive value that a guard focused purely on scoring might completely ignore. It speaks volumes about his complete two-way commitment. Now, his PIE sits just below that top 4 group, but his role is so unique as the league's top assist man. His swing factor seems really clear based on this. If Mamba keeps stacking wins, let's say they get to 5-1 or even 6-1 in the near future, and Nico maintains that #1 APG ranking while keeping his scoring around 17 or 18 points per game. He is primed to jump right into the top 3 discussion, potentially even surpassing B.A.L.L depending on how that huge college versus Raptors game plays out. Combining league-leading creation with strong team success, especially on a team that's clearly trending upwards, is a massive narrative booster for any MVP case.
Okay, now let's tackle maybe the toughest, or at least the most sort of emotionally resonant case in the MVP running right now. Jerome Tittle of the Grizzlies. He is the absolute definition of elite individual impact on a team that's really struggling. The Grizzlies are sitting at 1-3 with a catastrophic, not like a 62-point differential overall. That context makes his production a truly fascinating statistical anomaly.
Yeah, this is the moment where a metric like PIE really shines because it helps isolate individual contribution from team noise. Despite the team outcome, despite the fact that the Grizzlies are losing games, often by huge margins, Jerome Tittle's statistical output is undeniably elite. He's pulling down 12.0 rebounds per game, that's 3rd overall in the league. He's scoring 16.0 points per game, tied for 6th overall. And maybe most importantly for this discussion, he boasts a 15.6 PIE, that's 3rd overall, higher than Nico Arias on a winning team, higher than Sean Vestil on the undefeated team.
Wow, a PIE of 15.6 on a team with a NACA 62 differential just screams carrying. Exactly like the source notes say, he's a genuine load-bearing big man. Let's maybe delve into the psychology of that a little bit. What does that feel like?
Well, think about the psychological burden he must be under. He's simultaneously acting as the team's pressure release valve. You know, the guy they can just throw the ball to in the post when the offense stalls out completely just to stop the bleeding. And at the same time, he's a possession machine just through his sheer defensive rebounding. Then you add in the combination of those high rebounds plus 2.0 steals per game tied for ninth overall. For a big man, that indicates exceptional anticipation, active hands, really good positioning. This strongly suggests he's constantly covering for perimeter breakdowns by his teammates, and then he's trying to ignite the offense himself with efficient outlet passes, even if the team then struggles to convert down the line.
Okay, but here's the question that jumps out. If the team is losing by a total of 62 points over just 4 games, why is his PIE still so incredibly high? Shouldn't the team's overall failure drag his number down significantly?
That's the nuance of PIE. His PIE is so high because he's incredibly efficient relative to his team context, which appears to be borderline chaos based on that differential. It means when the ball goes through Jerome Tittle, that specific possession is being maximized relative to what else is happening on the court for the Grizzlies. He is minimizing the empty trips when he's involved. He's not turning the ball over frequently. He's converting his own chances efficiently. He's securing those crucial defensive rebounds, and he's generating those defensive stocks, steals and blocks. You could use an analogy, maybe. It's like he's putting out a 5-alarm fire almost every single night, but maybe his teammates keep accidentally starting new ones over in the kitchen. The PIE is just measuring how incredibly effective he is at putting out his fire and minimizing the damage within his direct scope of control. His individual value isn't diluted by being surrounded by other high-talent players like you see perhaps with the Raptors. Instead, his value stands out in really stark contrast to his teammates' struggles.
That makes his case maybe the most volatile, but also potentially the most compelling depending on what happens next. His main vulnerability is obvious, the team record. But the source material does give him a glimmer of hope, noting their recent W1, their first win. If they can somehow surge off that win and get closer to .500, let's say they manage to reach 3-3 in the coming weeks, then Jerome's whole MVP argument potentially shifts. It goes from just being elite stats on a bad team to being about the most valuable player relative to his team's baseline. That specific pivot could give his case serious teeth in the voter conversation later on. Okay, this deep dive has given us such a detailed view, not just of the statistical hierarchy, but also the really important contextual narratives driving this whole MVP race right now. Let's quickly recap the final ranking as it stands in the source material, just emphasizing the specific criteria, stats, and contexts that defined each spot and kind of cemented their position in the race for now.
Yeah, let's run through it one more time. 1, Arman Brown. It's about that unmatched usage combined with the league-leading 22.1 PIE. He is the direct driver of college's success through sheer force of will, consistent playmaking, basically controlling both ends of the possession cycle. 2, B.A.L.L. He's the systemic connective tissue of the league's best team, the Raptors. That elite 19.0 PIE, without needing to chase scoring points, is key. He defines their plus 83 success by just overwhelmingly controlling possessions. 3, Nico Arias, the definitive floor general, #1 in assists per game, 5.3 on a successful and, importantly, trending team, Mamba. Their offense clearly flows through his high-level decision-making and that surprising two-way commitment shown by the block stat. 4, Jerome Tittle. Despite the rough 1-3 record and a huge negative differential, he maintains the third overall PIE, 15.6. His value right now is framed as that immense load-bearing effort required just to drag a struggling baseline towards competitiveness. 5, Sean Vestal. He rounds out the top 5 with a top 4 PIE, 13.3. On that 4-0 Raptors powerhouse.
He's the efficiency driver, using his clean shot diet and crucial spacing impact to lift the entire system, essentially capitalizing perfectly on the possessions B.A.L.L creates.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because this is clearly a tight race, and it's going to be defined by continued winning and sustained individual impact. We need to look ahead now at the factors that the sources say will genuinely shift these rankings over the next few weeks. There seem to be 3 crucial narrative-defining swing moments potentially on the horizon.
Absolutely. The first, and probably the most obvious one, is that highly anticipated college versus Raptors head-to-head matchup. This is the ultimate collision of the 2 dominant narratives we've been talking about. Arman's high usage versus the Raptors' team efficiency. If Arman somehow outduels B.A.L.L and the rest of the Raptors core in college manages to secure the win, he likely pulls away definitively in the rankings for a while. He will have proven that his high usage dominance can effectively dismantle the efficiency-first system of the league's best team. Conversely, if the Raptors dominate that game, B.A.L.L's case for being the ultimate winner's anchor, the guy who makes the best team go, becomes almost undeniable.
Okay, huge stakes there. What's the second swing factor we need to watch?
The second one involves Mamba's trajectory, tied to Nico Arias. We need to watch closely what happens if Mamba keeps winning and reaches, say, 5-1 or even 6-1 over the next few weeks. If Nico Arias maintains that league lead in assists per game while keeping his scoring efficient, around 17 to 18 points, he could realistically jump to D.Will for the number 2 spot in the next analysis. Combining the #1 APG mark with elite team success, especially on a team that's visibly trending upwards, is just one of the most powerful narratives you can present to MVP voters. It could potentially overcome D.Will's slightly higher PIE but lower usage profile.
Makes sense. And the third factor ties back to the Grizzlies.
Exactly. The third factor is the potential climb of the Grizzlies, which is directly tied back to Jerome Tittle's value proposition. We have to really detail the importance of that team baseline concept. A crucial move towards .500, getting to maybe 3-3, seems to be the inflection point identified. If Jerome Tittle can successfully help the Grizzlies surge off their recent win and just hover around that .500 mark, then his case for most valuable relative to team baseline suddenly becomes massive. That 15.6 PIE, which right now might be viewed by some as just a statistical anomaly happening against a bad record, it instantly transforms. It becomes concrete proof of his unparalleled load-bearing value to that specific, perhaps lower talent roster. It changes the entire conversation around him.
So to really sum it all up for you, the listener, as you're watching these games play out, the sources are basically telling you to keep a very close eye on PIE stability above almost everything else. It really is presented as the cleanest measure of sustained individual gravity, and it's likely what will reveal who is truly maintaining their high level of impact as the schedule inevitably tightens up.
Absolutely. You really need to watch those key PIE thresholds over the coming games. Can Arman Brown possibly keep his PIE hovering around that incredible 22 mark? That level of sustained high usage efficiency is just incredibly difficult to maintain over a full season. Can D.Will hold firm around 19? If his PIE starts to dip, it probably means his defensive rebounding or his playmaking effectiveness is falling off slightly, which would directly hurt the Raptors system and that point differential. And can Sean Vestal maintain his elite efficiency and keep his PIE around that 13 threshold? If those key numbers hold relatively true for these top players, then the hierarchy we just laid out will likely remain pretty similar. But any significant dip, or conversely, a significant rise in those PIE values, especially linked to team wins or losses, that will almost certainly signal a true shift in the MVP race and likely result in a new ranking next time we get updated data. #tag outro.
So we're left with this fundamental dichotomy, this core question of the race right now. Is the definition of MVP really about the highest usage player who performs efficiently and is the direct primary driver of his team's success, which is clearly Arman Brown's case? Or is it more about the player who acts as that systemic connective tissue for the absolute best winning team, the possession king D.Will on the Raptors?
And this raises, I think, a really important final question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over as you watch these upcoming games unfold. Given all this data we've discussed and knowing that Jerome Tittle currently has the third highest PIE in the league while playing for statistically the worst team, essentially operating as the only highly functional component on a system with a Madrigal 62 differential, does the very definition of value inherently outweigh the concept of replacement? Should we perhaps value the sheer exhaustive load-bearing effort necessary to bring a struggling 1-3 team towards competitiveness and maintain that high PIE amidst chaos? Should we value that more than the high-efficiency production provided by an excellent player who is already surrounded by the talent and system of a +82 juggernaut? It's a tough question about what valuable truly means. Something for you to consider as you watch the standings shift and these incredible individual battles continue to play out.
That is the perfect thought to leave you with as we await the outcomes of these crucial upcoming matchups. Thanks as always for diving deep with us. We'll catch you next time.